everyone, or as my partner Sean likes to say, hello, friends. We are here today to have a chat with you about the importance of documenting our processes while streamlining our operations. So I'm Heather Smokum, and I'm here with my partner Sean Bahari, and we're going to have a little bit of a conversation with you today around why it's important to document these systems and processes in your operations in order to enable you to grow and scale your business. So why don't we jump right in? All right. So Sean, tell me why you think it is important for an organization, a small business, to streamline their operations through documenting process.
For me, I think the thing that comes to mind is when you're doing something, especially when you're beginning to grow your business and volume begins to increase, you want to have a function or functions that can operate in a repeatable manner and that there is consistency so that everybody knows if I am, calculating my expenses for the month, this is what is expected. These are the types of expenses and how they get categorized. What is the timeline? Who needs to see it next, what the approval process looks like, and those types of things. Because as you start to bring on more and more people, you want them to follow the same process. Because if everybody's doing it slightly differently, then the person who is left responsible to putting this all together, their job's going to be a bit of a nightmare. And in turn, it's going to slow the whole system down. So I've used accounting as the example, but this can happen in other parts of the organization as well.
Yeah, but I love that. Accounting, for example, is something that needs to be quite exact, right? We need to be very specific on how we execute this task because we need to get an accurate outcome. So I love that as an example of where we document a process. Like that is a process. Could you think of maybe an example where a process might be, or people might feel that a process isn't allowing them flexibility, and maybe another form of documentation would be better? Could you think of an example or something maybe?
So think of it as sales, right? So many organizations, they create a product and they want to sell that product or distribute that product. And when you go talking to a client, the conversation is probably a bit more fluid. And so if you're only checking boxes, it disrupts the chemistry, the relationship building that you. That said, there are certain boxes that do need to be checked. So while you may not be doing it in a very overt way, there are certain things that every salesperson should be aware of. I need to know how many widgets I'm selling, where I'm sending it, who the client is, what are my price parameters based on if you're giving bundle discounts, right? How big can I play? When I do this, who do I need to send the order to so that it gets fulfilled, so that it gets to the client in a timely way? So while it may not be overtly visible, there are still processes even in sales. Now, you've said this in previous conversations, processes are meant to be a guideline. And so in some situations where you cannot be as exact as, let's say, the accounting example we just used, we have that flexibility that gives us this wire framework that allows us to say, I know where my parameters are, and I can play within these parameters, and this is the safe zone, right? And if I need to go outside the safe zone in order to seal the deal, if you will, there may be a process. There may be somebody I need to reach out to, my boss, the head of sales, or whoever the person is, to say, got this really good client, brand new, they're also being courted by another, editor. And we can really close this deal down if we're able to go beyond a certain thing. But again, it is about working within a framework, understanding key things that we need to check boxes on, and doing it in a way that doesn't seem as though it is just process for the sake of process.
And I love that. So you use like a golden word for me is checklist, right? For me, like a framework when I used to hear the word framework, it was like, oh my goodness, like it's decision-making frameworks. And there was all these different things within the framework that like to me, a framework could just be a checklist, like make sure in your conversation, you've done this, reminder that, that process of when you put the order in for them to receive the product takes, 5 days, things that you need to be aware of. So it really can just be a checklist that you have covered off, or, reminder notes at the bottom when you're having that conversation. So I think that's a great example of process, framework, checklist, guidelines to allow us to be flexible. So I love that answer. All right. So Sean, we've talked about the, importance of documenting our processes, our systems, whatever they look like in multiple forms, whether it's a checklist or an actual SOP, a process documentation or framework. How can we apply those in a positive way when it comes to either an employee, team member, or client experience? Can you talk to me a little bit about why they're important for those pieces of a business as well?
So again, the importance to me, a lot of it is consistency. So whether or not we're allowing some leeway, let's say with sales, so that the conversation between the salesperson and the client feels more organic, right? You still want to ensure that there is a consistency in certain things that we need to do, so that, let's say, if we ever got audited, right, that we can demonstrate that everybody is sort of working within the same guidelines, within the same set of rules, if you will, that we're not just doing things willy-nilly. When you bring a new resource on board, that they have a template that they can reference so that they understand how we as an organization, we operate. What are the things that are important to us, and what are the checks and balances we have in place to ensure that we're doing the right things? The other thing that I would say is you want to make sure that if we're finding that the processes we have in place are not working as well as they should, we then have a template or a baseline we can refer to that we can then find ways to improve that, continuous improvement, if you will. Yeah. So we can identify those deficiencies of where it doesn't work. If you don't have something documented, I don't want to say you're kind of pulling it out of thin air, but it kind of feels like it. And that's where you will find breakdowns in processes.
Yes. Yep. I love that. Oh, I didn't follow this step, and, the client, didn't get onboarded properly, or there was, some kind of error in the system. Yeah. So no, I love that. Yeah. For me too, like the importance in it is the experience of the owner in a business, for example, not having those processes documented when they onboard a new team member. So, we know that the cost of bringing someone on new to your team or your business is high, right? Because there's a good potentially 3 months to 6 months where they're onboarding and learning what they need to be doing in that role. So the more you can outline and document what they need to be doing, what that looks like to the best of our ability, whether it's a guideline, a checklist, whatever, A, the quicker they're going to get up to speed, B, the less questions you're going to be answering because you've clearly outlined what they need to be responsible for. And then you're just touching base with them to see how things are going. And having that new set of eyes on that process is maybe going to say, why did we do it that way? Have we tried it this way? I've used this system before, or I've tried this. So to your point about, allowing for continuous improvement in a process, that's where having those things documented for a new team member joining has multiple benefits.
I'm glad you said that. One of my colleagues would say, and this is more pertinent for a smaller organization than it is for a larger organization. If one of our team members won the lottery and didn't come back next day, could somebody else pick up their work and run with it? Right? And that's a moment of aha, because if we don't have things documented, if we don't know what that's supposed to look like, what the steps are, it is going to be much harder to replace that person or for somebody else to try to step in and fill their shoes while that person sails off on their, multi-year cruise because they've struck it rich.
Exactly. Amen to that. Right. And you don't get in that situation until it happens to you. And then you're like, balls, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Great example. I love that. Yeah. So thank you for not saying they got hit by a bus. They won the lottery. Yeah.
So that was what I used to say.
I know.
And then the person said, listen, let's be positive and let's say they won the lottery.
They won the lottery.
That's always a good thing, right?
Awesome. Good one, John. All right. So one final thought for me on, documenting processes, especially for small businesses, Sean. A lot of people say that this takes time, and I know it takes time, right? It doesn't have to be rocket science, but it needs to be done at some point in order to scale and grow your business. For me, where I love to start is just a process map of all the steps within the system or within the action. So we talked about, sales calls. Okay, sales calls is just a piece of closing the loop to getting the product to the client, right? Or to the customer. So, we hold our sales call, we place the order has to be filled, the order has to be shipped. So just seeing how that process flows through in your business is really valuable to somebody who's new to your organization. Because I come in and I'm like, okay, well, how does this work? Well, we do this and then we do this and then we do this. Okay, but if I could hand somebody a process flow that says this is the processes, the steps that we follow to get there, that means, okay, I'm less likely to skip one because I know what that looks like. And then you can go deeper to say, okay, let's document the process within each step. So then, okay, salesperson knows what they're doing in sales, order person knows what they're doing in orders. So start with the process map and then dig deeper into the process documentation to help everybody know what they're responsible for. So that's my final thought on the biz buzz today.
And I agree with you, right? Listen, I've seen on a project that I worked on, one individual said, no, I'm gonna take charge of creating this process map. And she came back with a process flow diagram that had over 1,000 steps. Exactly. And if you're a small business owner and you had to show your people that, I didn't want to look at it.
No.
Okay? Yeah. And we work for a big organization. So I think there is a risk in going into too much minutia. And what you talked about, which is really starting with a high-level user journey. So what does that overall user experience or user journey need to look like? If you're using the sales example, right? Can you put that picture in one page in a way that it is meaningful? And then you can take each process step or each step in that journey and further decompose it into multiple steps. But at a minimum, if people can understand the overview of what the experience should look like, what the flow should be, how do we know we get to end of job, then for the individuals who have to work on the discrete components of those steps, when they break those down, not only do they understand their steps, but they can then understand how their steps fits into that bigger picture.
Awesome. Yes. Right? Yep. Absolutely.
So balance is key. I would agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And, people don't know that they can bring people in like me to help them and their teams work on building that out. Yes, people find it overwhelming and I get it. People don't like it. People are very like, oh, that's not my game, right? There's so many tools to use to help people as well. Like we use, Loom. There's another, system called Scribe, which helps. Like there's so many systems that'll help just transfer knowledge from one person to another without having to make it complicated. And it shouldn't be complicated, but it all does just take time, especially to make sure it's getting updated, make sure it's getting reviewed, make sure it's getting used, because if it's not getting used, then what's the freaking point, right? Yes. So, I've even created a freebie that people can sign up for. And I call it the process playbook for small business owners. And it really just helps you identify those simple tasks that you can create a simple process for and easily delegate that task. So it's a freebie that I have. I'll link it in the show notes as well so people can sign up and check it out.
Folks, she's telling you, right? She is available. Heather Smokum, Lotus
OMS. Chief of Staff, People Operations. I can help you out. So yes, I'll even give you a 15-minute quickie assessment if that's something that people are interested in. So yeah, reach out.
All right. So Sean and Heather here from the Biz Buzz, trying to help provide you with a little bit of knowledge and content that would improve your lives, your businesses, and the experiences that we can offer to you in terms of helping you evolve. Check us out on the socials. I'm on LinkedIn. Heather's on LinkedIn. Heather, what's your website again?
Website, www.lotusoms.com. And I'm also on Instagram the odd time as well, Lotus OMS. Check us out.
Check us out. All right. We'll talk to you again.
Awesome. Keep the buzz going.
Keep the buzz going. Bye, guys.